What's up, y'all? It's me. 38 days sober. Feeling good about it. My first big milestone was, of course, 30 days. And then 5 weeks, which was day 35. The next day I'm shooting for is day 60. So I'm going to lock in, stick to my schedule till I get there. Today I'm drinking chocolate milk. I already pre-mixed it. Whole milk, Hershey's syrup. It's one of my favorites, man. Very nice. Tell you a quick little story about when I was younger. When I was a kid, my parents would leave me home alone. I would always go into the fridge and grab the Hershey syrup. I thought I was real slick. I would drink a little bit of it, put it back, try to cover my bases. But I would pour it into my mouth. And a couple drops would always spill onto the floor, no matter what I did. And at the time, I didn't go back and clean those drops up. So I would get caught. Every single time I would do it, I would get caught. And I think that started a pattern that would continue, which extends till now. And this is why I don't break any laws. And I'm a law-abiding citizen. Because I believe if I were to really push it, I'd probably get caught. The first time I ever tried to shoplift, I got caught. When I was in high school and I stole a little bit of food, I got caught. I may have gotten away with certain things here or there over the years, but I think it's good to ask yourself, if I get caught doing what I'm doing right now, can I live with the consequences? If the answer is no, you probably shouldn't be doing it. I like to think that's more wisdom than knowledge, because we all know that, and yet something has to happen for us all to get there, right? But that's not the main topic of today's video. What I'm going to be talking about today is how to deal with bullies and what it was like being bullied when I was younger and how people attempt to bully me now and fail. I think it's important to talk about, because if there's any younger me's out there, it's stressful, man. And it feels like they have all this power over you. But I'll explain to you how they don't. So the first thing I'll tell you about is a classic trait of a man who's a bully is he will pick on women or children. That's something that he will do. Now you got to break this down, really analyze and study the anatomy of the bully, right? And that's where the answer lies. Now what a bully thinks they're doing, and sometimes will do, is see weakness and attack it. Now what a warrior does is attack strength. You may or may not have seen the movie Troy, where the young boy's talking to Achilles, who's about to go duel this huge motherfucker. And he says to him, I wouldn't want to fight that guy. And Achilles looks at the boy and he says, that's why no one will remember your name. So the first thing you need to remember is that all bullies will be forgotten by history, without a doubt. Meaningless as far as history is concerned. You may find some solace in that. But if you're being tormented by one, that doesn't really help, right? Because you remember. So the next thing you need to understand is the reason why the spirit of the bully attacks what they believe to be weak is they know in their heart that they themselves are weak. They are afraid, they are cowards, and they are weak. So if you show strength instead of the weakness that they thought they were going to find, 9 out of 10 times they will flee. You won't even have to do anything because they won't want it anymore because it's not what they thought they were getting. Right? They want to play a video game on easy mode because hard mode scares them every single time, right? That man doesn't want it with another man. He'd rather get it with a child or a woman or something that he thinks he's got a leg up on, right? If they're a brawler, they always shoot down a couple weight classes. Now, something to understand. The giraffe is not the king of the jungle, right? Height, size, these things don't matter as much as how sharp your claws are and how sharp your fangs are. Now, I'm not saying what you should do is what I did and literally stab your bully or throw burning water all over them. You might not get away with that, and it's not worth catching a charge, man. But what it is okay to do is stand up for yourself in a certain way. When I was really young, like elementary school young, my first nickname ever, people called me cheese grater. And that was when I was young enough that words were able to hurt me, you know? I hadn't developed what might be an antisocial personality yet. My psychopathic traits had not exited yet. So I still cared about certain things and certain people, I thought. I wanted to be accepted. I cared what people said about me, and I really wanted to be liked by everybody, which wasn't a reasonable expectation. My rib cage stuck out so much when I was younger that it looked like you could grate cheese on it, man. And that's where the kids went off, and they found my actual insecurity because I hated that about myself, even though I had no control over it. Come to find out, I wasn't able to eat the same way that maybe normal kids were able to eat because I was filled with adrenaline when I was supposed to be eating. But that's a whole nother story. I noticed that when somebody much larger than me attempts to intimidate me and fails, it is a very different type of response than when somebody who's actually had to fight for it their whole life meets another person who's had to fight for it their whole life. They say it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. That's true. It's about spirit. If I'm willing to bite a chunk out of your face when we go into combat, and you're not willing to take it there, if I'm willing to bite a chunk out of your leg, you don't want to wrestle with me. You know what I mean? And this isn't me putting on an act. This isn't me putting on a show. Sometimes you have to be willing to take it there so that when they look into your eyes and they look for weakness, they don't find any. And then they go and seek it elsewhere, right? They'll see it in the mirror. They won't see it in you. That's how I know whenever I look into somebody's eyes, right? And I see a mirror like I'm looking into my own eyes. That person's willing to take it there. Neither of us will start a goddamn piece of trouble with each other, I've noticed. The only people going around starting shit are the ones who forget where it can actually go. That's something to keep in mind. Now, how should you deal with the bully? Bullying and disrespect can show up in small ways or can come up in really big ways. A small way that one man may attempt to bully or disrespect another man is to use words that are belittling, right? To call him buddy, to call him, what are words that people use? I know buddy's a good one. Anything that a man would call his son, right? When somebody tries to son you. Now, how do I handle when somebody calls me buddy, when somebody calls me these things? On a small scale, I don't tolerate it. So maybe that makes me insecure, but I believe if you give an inch, you might as well give up that whole mile. Because that's what they're looking for, is give and play. So if somebody calls me buddy, if somebody calls me boy, if somebody calls me something that you really shouldn't call a grown man, I don't respond by calling them buddy back. I don't stoop to their level. I don't call them little boy. I call them big man. Because the same way I know in my heart, I might not be your buddy, they know in their heart, they're not a big man. So if you ever want to try that one out, with a big smile on your face, say, thank you, big man. That'll be the end of it. They're not having fun anymore. The problem with the bully is they're actually so bored and so small that they use these moments to try to entertain themselves because their life is truly miserable, genuinely. So that's where they get a little droplet of what they think is joy, even though it's a very low level version that is not happiness. So if I call somebody big man, they probably deserve it. Now that's very different than when I'm talking to somebody I respect and I go, yo, big dog, They might actually be that. I might actually be giving them some respect. But either way, I'm not going to stoop to your level and use that weak man type of speak. You know what I mean? And you may notice that people attempt to hate on me at this point in my life. Kobe Bryant said they don't hate on good, they hate on great. May he rest in peace. So every time you hear that, you should take that as flattery, as a compliment, because they're telling you deep down they look up to you. So they want to knock you down a peg or two. And this is where nature becomes interesting. I still find it to be shocking when a man who's twice my size and twice my weight gives me this compliment. Maybe he can see how I carry myself. Maybe he sees the look in my eye that he doesn't see in the mirror. I don't know what it is, right? Maybe I just have a spirit of a wolf in me, and when a poodle walks up, even when it's a huge fucking poodle, it can't help but bow a little bit, whether it realizes it or not, because the laws of the nature are unbreakable. Now, I'm not the biggest wolf in the forest, but I know I'm not a fucking poodle, right? You know what I mean? God bless the poodle. I love dogs. But it's really disgusting what humans have done to the beautiful animal that is the wolf, because they're afraid of it and had to knock it down so many pegs to have it as a little pet, right? It's not the poodle's fault. It's the human's fault. But the point is, on a small scale, you don't tolerate it. And the other thing I've noticed is, I should say, you don't ignore it. You don't have to attack it, but you basically send a message that's like, I know what you're doing and it's not going to work, right? It didn't work. I'm not your buddy. I'm not your boy. I think that's very important. I'm not a punk. You can just gently say that. No, I'm not. I'm not that. But on a grander scale, right? Like if you're in the gym and somebody wants to play chicken, like they're about to walk right into you, you could be that motherfucker that lowers your shoulder and tries to steamroll right into them and gives them the confrontation that they're actually asking for. Or you could be the bigger man. Now, what do you think the bigger man does? In an immature situation, the smaller man will escalate the situation. Will escalate. Because he either doesn't value his life or he doesn't value yours. Now, if you're a grown man, you recognize that any conflict with another grown man may escalate to violence, which may escalate to death for one party. That's real life. You don't have to be in prison during a no-hands policy to recognize that at any point in any time, a situation can turn lethal. Especially between two lethal fucking people. Anybody that's in denial of that is living in a little fantasy world or in a little playpen where nobody gets lethal with them, right? That's just a fact of life. It also shocks me how many grown men still live in this little kiddie pool in this little playpen. And that just tells me they've never been in a situation where it can get real and nobody will know what happened. Somebody can lose their life, right? That is what it is. Somebody can lose their manhood. Somebody can lose a lot more than just a couple minutes or a tooth or two, right? That just is what it is. So walking around knowing in my heart, I can kill you if I want to. And that comes from training, that comes from weapons, that comes from a spirit, that comes from understanding. It's not that hard to kill a person, right? Sometimes it's harder to stay alive. Now, if you get caught up in the media, especially as a man or a boy, if you get caught up in the video games, the TV shows, everything that glorifies killing, not to say that real warriors don't deserve respect, because they risk dying. Because every time you think that you're able to kill, you're also able to die. Most people don't recognize that. If you're willing to kill, you have to be willing to die, or essentially lose your entire life. A lethal moment can change everything for everybody. Now, a real motherfucker knows this in his heart. He's felt it and seen it. A boy who still has not yet experienced this, which, let me be clear, there's plenty of males under the age of 18 who unfortunately have had to experience the serious reality of life. And I've walked into 30, 40, 50-year-olds who I can tell have training wheeled their way through the whole thing. Do not be mistaken. Now, if it's on a grand scale, I will advise you, value your freedom, value your life, and recognize that they will get what is coming to them, and it is not your job to serve it to them. If somebody is driving recklessly and almost hits your car, it's not your job to follow them home and beat some sense into them. It's not your job to drive recklessly back and almost hit them. It's your job to stay in your lane, do what you do, and recognize that sooner or later, they're going to bother the wrong person, or they're going to miss, and they're actually going to hit somebody's car. It's expensive and time consuming to get in an accident, man. I'll tell you, there was one time I lost my temper, and I literally drove into another person on purpose in their car. I'm not going to lie. I wanted into their lane. They were hanging back. There was plenty of room in front of them, and they weren't moving forward just to keep me out. And I lost my temper, and I ripped right into the side of them. Costed me thousands of dollars, and I didn't have my car for about 40 days. And during those 40 days, and when I spent that money, I thought to myself, what the fuck was I thinking, man? But that's the first time I did that, and it will be the last. Now, I'll be honest with you, that was back when I was high off of weed and steroids. So that shit probably did not help my decision making. You could call it roid rage. You could call it being high brain. Whatever you want. It was a mistake. It was a lapse in judgment. It was honestly thinking I wanted something that I didn't. Thinking I was willing to pay a price that I really wasn't. That was an important lesson for me. Taught me an awful lot. I'm glad I only crashed out a little bit with my car in that moment, and I never did that with my body. I never did that with my mind, my soul, my spirit, because you can't always get that back. That's not always insured. You get what I mean? So if somebody's really trying to bully you overtly, I'll tell you what I say being me, because I know what I'm capable of. There's a thing that I call death by Andrew. That's my name, Andrew. I've noticed that if somebody's a massive coward and they're living in a way that they're really ashamed of, they would like to die. They would, on some level. They think. The reality is they just don't want to live like that anymore. And there is a better way, but maybe they don't have the strength or the nuts to change their life and improve. So they'd rather take that easy way out. A motherfucker like me, whether you want to believe it or not, looks like an easy way out because I can kill you in 20 minutes, 20 seconds, 5 seconds, right? As easy as I breathe. I was trained to do it at 14 years old, and I've been able to pull triggers ever since. Now, God bless the fact that I've never had to, and it's never come out. I just play video games about killing people. I just write songs about killing people. And I learn from my friends and older brothers who I've seen go down certain roads. And they basically tell me with their spirit, don't do what I did, man. Don't go that route. I regret it. There's a luck factor that I've never been pushed over that edge. But at the same time, there's a plan in place. I think I'm supposed to set some type of example. I wouldn't be where I am or who I am if I was just going around doing that, right? And the reality is, there's people in prison who are way bigger and badder than I'll ever be. And if I want to be some type of gangster killer motherfucker, I gotta go live with them. And let's be real. I'd rather be what I am on the street than whatever I'd become in there. I'll be honest with you. Who knows, right? You gotta walk the mile to find out. I've been institutionalized a little bit, and I saw what that did to me. But that wasn't prison, man. They say prison changes a man, and I believe it does. Every man who comes out of prison stronger and better, I think he does that in spite of it. We don't have prisons like Germany. Our prisons are for profit. They're designed to get you there and keep you there and have you working and have them making money off of you because it's for profit. And they don't make any money off of an empty prison, do they? But that's a whole nother story. It's all relevant, though. You want to go make them money? They'll send you right there. There's plenty of stories about people who have 6 months and it turns into 6 years and then it turns into 60 because of what they became and had to do there, man. And I'll be dead honest with you, I think that's by design. There's a concept called customer lifetime value. That's why all these companies are subscription-based companies now. They make more money off of you if you pay them every single month forever than they make if they just sell you something one time. You're not going to get somebody to spend 40 grand, but you can get them to spend $40 a month forever. Something to think about. I like to think I've kind of tried it all. I've tried fighting back. I've tried using extreme violence. I've tried escalating. I've tried de-escalating. The best way to handle a bully is to smile, be the bigger man, send the message that you cannot and did not bother me. Whatever weakness you think you see doesn't exist here, and I'm not even going to take the time to prove it to you. Because you might be walking around with something to prove to yourself and everybody else, because you know deep, deep down you are a bitch. But those of us who've been backed into a corner, who've seen what comes out of us when 2, 3, 4 people try to take your manhood, try to take something from you that really matters to you, try to take your life, and it doesn't work. There's nothing left to prove, right? So once you've proven that to yourself, or even if you never really have, just know, we all have it in us. But it doesn't need to come out. If you don't work out, if you're not familiar with the human anatomy, if you don't understand how weapons work, maybe it's a good idea to brush up on those things so that you have the confidence to know that you can handle a situation if you aren't able to get out of it, right? If somebody breaks into your home and attacks your family, maybe now it's time to turn into a fucking killer, right? Especially if you live in a stand your ground or defend your castle state in America. I'm not going to sit here and say allow yourself to become a victim. But what I can tell you is that the low-level predators, the scavengers, they don't seek or hunt weakness. They don't seek or hunt strength. They do seek and hunt weakness. So what you can do is be strong enough that your presence shows you cannot attack a woman or a child while I'm around because I'm strong enough to handle you. And you can set the example for something like a child or a man who's still so lost that he thinks that's what a man is. To take things up a notch, right? And improve the world around you. I recognize, whether you like it or not, that I have a little bit of influence. When I adjust one of the characteristics of my life or behavior, I notice people around me, they adjust as well, which means they must be paying attention. The same way that there's certain people I keep an eye on, and I go, damn, he's doing it right. He must know things that I don't. If he's doing that thing that I don't really want to do or understand, maybe I should try it out, right? People will test you. People will try you, especially as you get bigger and as you grow. Because the thing that I've noticed is all of these motherfuckers that fake project strength and deep down have weakness inside, sometimes they see real strength and they think it's the same thing. They think, oh, if I just pull a couple layers back, there's going to be weakness in there because I know that's what's in here, right? That's not always the case. Some people are even wolves in a sheepskin, where they'll project fake weakness. Let me tell you one more story before I go about power. One of the best things I ever did, man, was wrestle in high school. Any males out there or females who really want to push it, I will suggest that you wrestle, man. The practices are hard. The matches are hard. It's just you and your opponent. You're basically half naked. It's a vulnerable situation. And when you learn how to be strong when you feel vulnerable, you'll never be vulnerable again. I'll never forget this. I'm not going to name names because it could come off as disrespectful. But there was somebody on my high school wrestling team who, before I joined it, I would have thought, man, I could eat that guy for lunch, right? I lifted weights. He didn't. I just got out of military school. He didn't, right? I was like, who is that, right? I was judgmental. I was a little puffed up. And I was naive and I was immature, and I'll admit it. Now, this motherfucker was a savage on the wrestling mat. He would throw people around twice his size, tie them up like a pretzel, man. Because he had a secret. He had a shadow. He had a huge, scary older brother that I'm pretty sure he practiced on, man. And he might have beat. But if not, he was enough on his own. He is why I had to wrestle up a weight class. Because no matter what I did, I could not beat this guy, man. I could lift more weights than him. I could run farther than him, right? All the things that I thought might have mattered. But when it was just me and him, pretzel time, pin time. Because he had been doing it for such a long time. He had been wrestling for over a decade. And I was brand new. And this is where you want to get humbled real quick. It's like your first time going into an MMA gym. It's like your first time going into a boxing gym. Even if they're huge, they'll put somebody small against you. They'll put a girl against you. And you will get fucked up, man, because they know what they're doing, and you don't. Never judge a book by its cover. And if you really want to, you better read so many books that you understand there's a couple different authors out here. There might be an author that the cover of their book perfectly reflects every word in it. And there might be an author who the cover is the only thing that matters, and the inside is fluff. And there might be an author who spends so much time on the meat and the words, they let somebody else handle the cover, and it doesn't even represent what's in there. Something to think about. You never know what somebody's capable of. And everybody about the shit would rather not find out, right? Don't press the wrong person. Don't try the wrong person. Because you may find out. The same way that a lot of us have found out. Sometimes that's a lethal situation. Those are the facts. That's the truth. The best thing you can do is never be a bully. When I was talking about thinking maybe I could handle that guy because he was smaller than me, that was the spirit of a bully coming out. Which, like I told you, is the spirit of weakness. Strength conducts itself with confidence. And when you're confident, you don't have anything to prove, man. You wear what you want. You drive what you want. You say what you want. You listen to what you want. Because it's for you. Excuse me. It's for you. It's not for anybody else. Something to think about. 38 days sober. I'm glad to be. I feel very blessed. If you want to reach out to me, you can hit me up here. My Instagram is Andrew_Prometheus. Prometheus out.